Google cutting hundreds of jobs, Microsoft cutting almost 2,000 jobs at Activision Blizzard.
That 40% of companies admitted to posting a ghost job within the previous year.
The labor market is decoupling from growth.
See reporting will be the largest cuts in the company's history.
Will be cutting more than 10% of its global staff.
The layoffs are the first for Apple since the pandemic.
Amazon is cutting hundreds of jobs.
AI.
Amazon is set to announce massive layoffs.
The headlines are saying AI is finally making us more productive. GDP is up. Big tech is printing money. The robots are working. Everything is going great. But what does it mean for you? Will you be a recipient of the productivity gains of AI? In order to understand this, we have to go back in time a little bit to a different era, a different technological revolution. Indeed, the first technological revolution ever had. Looking back on the first industrial revolution, we now say that it was one of the things that helped spur the entire world into the greatest era of prosperity and wealth ever to exist in human history. But to them, it was world-shaking. This is why we had people like Karl Marx and the Luddites. And the Luddites were actively trying to smash machines because they thought the world will end, no one will have a job, what will we do? And Karl Marx was saying that eventually, over time, they'll just invest in capital and they'll forget about humans. These are the same arguments that we hear in every single technological revolution. That the worker will be replaced by a robot, by a machine, by an algorithm, and that this time is the different time. This time is the only time where we're actually being replaced. And I think there is something there for people who think that that might happen. But from a historical standpoint, that's always been wrong. And then there are the other people that say that this technology is so good that it requires so much investment that we should be putting all of our money and all of our effort into doing this one technological advancement. And in the past, it's resulted in bubbles. The biotech bubble, the tech bubble in 2000, the railroad bubble in the 1900s, the textile bubble in the 1800s. This has always resulted in these types of asset bubbles. A lot of times, both sides end up turning out both right and wrong, where the technology does change the future and it does take jobs, but it creates new jobs and it changes the future, but just not in the way that people thought it would. And we're in the early innings of AI development and AI technology. The internet really did change everything. The bubble of the internet was bad. It was about money chasing the idea instead of like the ideas actually being good. Solow's growth paradox is the idea that you don't see productivity statistics for technology early on, and they take a while. And it's for a couple of reasons, but the biggest reason is that technology takes a while to reorganize, especially in firms. So in the internet age, at the start, you couldn't see any productivity gains from the internet because what was happening is they had to reorganize their entire workforce and their entire workflow for the internet. And that took time and resources away from being regularly productive. So it took a while for the stats to add up. Famously, one guy said that you can see computers everywhere except in the productivity numbers. Slowly, and then all at once, these productivity statistics started to come in once they were finally reorganized. That's the J-curve, the investment, then you look backward and you're on the other side and you realize this investment was actually worth something. But that's only for the firms that make it. So right now, 95% of companies say they aren't getting a return on investment for their AI strategies. This is an MIT study, by the way. I'll leave a link to it in the description. We're still in the ugly part of the J-curve, the bubble part of the J-curve, some might say. But eventually, these investments will have to pay off or these companies will go broke. That's how business works. Big technology firms have recognized this J-curve and they have invested so much money that it's more than the Interstate Highway Project and the Apollo moon landing combined, and more than the GDP of Sweden every single year. So they're all in, and the market has priced them, these magnificent 7 companies, as the winners of this artificial intelligence race. As a result, the rest of the market has started to be priced in as the losers. The magnificent 7 companies, these giant technological companies that are investing in AI, make up 37% of the entire S&P 500. That's the most concentrated it's ever been. The rest of the market and the rest of the economy looks increasingly shaky. Some would say a K-shaped economy. And it's K-shaped because the top half of the K, the high-end consumer, is doing well. The high-end consumer, which is the top 10% of the population, makes up 50% of all consumer spending. And the bottom half barely represents any of the market anymore. It's so small. And it's all the big players who are winning. It's the hyperscalers, as everyone's been saying. It's the top 7 companies with all their capital expenditure that make up the most amount of the market and have had the most gains over the last couple of years. Most Americans have a very negative view of AI. More than half of Americans think that it negatively affects their ability to do things on their own. 77% think it poses a threat to humanity. Here's a real problem though, is it doesn't actually matter what consumers think about AI. It's being forced into everything, and it's because the main consumer of AI isn't actually consumers, it's other companies. It's basically a B2B service. Every large data-dependent company that exists, and that's basically every company for the past 10 years, is the real customer of AI integration. And what are they doing? They're buying it so that they can use it as either a consultant or to help with their workflows or to reduce headcount as ways of cost cutting and to find the best way to optimize the consumer, not for the consumer. Record profits and record layoffs actually stem from the same thing. AI helps companies save money. That's why consumer sentiment ever since 2020 and 2022, when AI first started to come out, it's way down. There's other reasons for consumer sentiment being down, but this is definitely among them, is that disposable income and the share of income that they can spend on leisure goods and other services is being destroyed right now by compressing wages. It feels like the vibe is off for them. That's why some people have called it a vibe session, because the GDP numbers look good because they're being held up by the top 10%, but the rest of the economy is slowly rotting underneath. So what does this mean for you practically in this changing times? In past eras of technological innovation, it's also been the time where you have the greatest opportunity because there aren't gatekeepers in certain fields yet. Like in the past, you could have gotten into computers, and there would have been no one to be like, you have to get a college degree, you have to get a CS degree to even work at this company. It was just something that you could do. And this is kind of what we're approaching right now, is that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, but it means that you actually have to try very, very hard to get it. And so some of the tenets that I would live by if you don't want to go out and risk everything is stay out of debt and save your money, invest it, and try not to get fired. Thanks for watching. I have a link to the Substack below where I explained all my reasonings, and actually this video is based off the Substack. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you again soon.